Peace, world. How you doing? This is your brother Mikey Fever, NYP, and tonight guest is the honorary, our often guest, revolutionary, empowerment sister Tiffany French in the building. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me.
Tonight will be a good conversation that we're gonna have about the aspects and elements that affect the Black family. So we just gonna go right into it. It's not gonna be all pretty. We're gonna be asking some tough, hard hitting questions and hopefully find an answer to bring some clarity to our people. To know that family is where everything starts at. That's the basis. That's each and every person's foundation. Without the foundation, there's no way you can stand. And if you survive that, when you go out into the world and create your own family, you always start with a foundation. All right, no doubt. So, Tiff, you ready, sister?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Definitely, no doubt. All right. So the first question I have is, how does the lack of access to quality education influence the Black family stability?
Well, the lack of access of quality education um, impacts the Black family in ways because we're not getting like the substantial education. We take a look at the No Child Left Behind policy, which was introduced around 2001 by former President Bush, George Bush.
Yeah,
Yeah,
little George.
so yeah, yeah, Junior. All right.
Yeah.
So when he introduced the bill of the No Child Left Behind, the whole thing was to skip a child to the next grade. So
Yes.
they wanted to keep repeating the grade over and over. And that's the case. Like there's children who's going to the next grade
Hmm.
and they're not really getting the adequate education. And also like the curriculum they're learning, right, is not giving them the opportunity to actually learn how to think, but basically it's to like it's to feed them repetition, as my uncle used to say. When I was in school, he said they're not teaching you how to think, they're giving you repetition. And
Hmm.
so I mean that they repeat it over and over, and the only reason why they're really doing that is so the student can pass a test, the state test, the county test, whatever type of test it is. So once
Definitely.
the student passed the test, right, then they could send them off. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really benefit the student at all. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't really have somebody who can teach them one on one,
Hmm.
as far as like tutoring is concerned, or they're not. And then also we gotta look at the PTA. We gotta look at Parents Teacher Association, which is now Parents Teacher Conference, right? Now enough parents showing up to the school to see where their child is at as far as their reading level is concerned, their writing level, math level, all of that. They're not sitting down with the teacher and see what can they do to come up with better solution to help the child to be more advanced and be more being more inquisitive,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, so that's the issue right there. A lack of teacher parents come from mean that a lot of parents are not really showing up to these conferences as they should. And the school system is pretty much feeling like we have a situation now where there's debates going back and forth. Should there be advanced African American
Studies and
curriculum?
stuff. Yeah.
Yes, here in the South.
Yeah, and I agree with what you say with as far as the No Child Left Behind. That was like one thing Bush was using throughout his whole campaign, and people took it on as people who didn't have the information, who didn't do the due diligence to find out what was that your child was just, as you said, was just given information, and all he or she has to do is just regurgitate it. There's no
Right,
critical thinking involved. They're not
exactly,
being challenged. They're not really assessing what levels that he or she may learn at, and it was a detriment because the majority of those children who went through that cycle came out of school reading at a third or fourth grade level,
exactly,
so they couldn't compete with their counterparts. So,
exactly.
that was pretty it was devastating for the Black community at that. I appreciate what you said with that answer. That's real. Next one I have is, what are the effects of unemployment and underemployment on Black family?
Okay, what are the effects of unemployment, underemployment?
Yeah,
Well, here's the thing. The main effect is the income instability.
yeah,
Income instability, because at that point, you're wondering, well, do I have enough money to be able to keep up with the bills? And
mm,
now you have to take on multiple jobs to be able to take care of the rent, right?
definitely.
And then there's people who take on a part-time job and they also have a temporary job, or they have to go through the I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it's like a job program where they can get in and get a job. What is a job agency? Yes,
Oh,
that's
the
why.
staffing firms and such. Yeah,
Yeah, job agency. So, and
yeah,
those things can be challenged,
mm,
very challenging. So yeah, when you have income instability, right, it makes it where it makes it so difficult to for the family to be able to meet their basic needs,
mm,
or making sure they can be able to provide food on the table. Also, let's say, be able to pay the rent, be able to pay
yeah,
the utilities, and then if you have children, you have to
yeah,
pay for the child care or
yeah.
whatnot. Yeah, so the income instability plays a factor in that.
That's a fact. Right now, it's very critical. I see what's going on out there right
Oh,
now.
yes.
It is critical because, you know, that underemployment, depending on the individual circumstances. Say, for instance,
Hmm.
especially, this may be sensitive for many, but if a person is like, say, has a criminal record and such, a lot of opportunities are limited due to that record. So,
Exactly.
so it's like, society closes its door on you. So it's like, that's like when you can't find unemployment. And the underemployment is that, as you mentioned, when people trying to work two jobs or such to make it happen, to provide for their family.
And also, I meant to put out there, when we look at the pandemic, when
Hmm.
COVID hit, many jobs had shut down. So that put a lot of people out of work, or
Yeah.
that cut a lot of people hours. And then there's a lot of businesses that has not came back
Mm.
from the
The
pandemic.
pandemic.
Then
Yeah.
you had small business owners who were struggling to be able to get the PPP loan
Hmm.
to keep their business going.
Yeah,
They
that's a
were
fact.
struggling hard. So, but you have
Yeah.
somebody like Brett Favre, for example,
Yeah.
the former quarterback for Green Bay Packers.
Hmm.
I mean, he's getting all that money, but the where he's at in Mississippi, I believe, and the people who really need it, they're not getting it. And then you have people who's getting these loans and they committing all type of frauds and
Oh
not getting
man,
it. Yes.
talk
So
about it.
yes, and so it brings about major. It was bringing about major hindrance to those who are small business owners, especially because they had no way to be able to keep up with their business and be able to pay their employees.
Hmm. I agree with you. Shame on those people out there that was doing the PPP scam, dude. I'm not.
Yeah.
The only reason why I'm saying shame on y'all, some of y'all didn't invest in no businesses. You were out there drinking Casamigos. You was out partying. You was going to
Right.
Dubai. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Some of your sisters were out there changing your bodies, augmenting yourselves, getting the BBLs. Have
All
like
kinds of
three or
stuff.
four planes coming straight from the Dominican Republic. Y'all all coming in on wheelchairs. Shame on y'all, man.
Don't get me started about the BBLs.
They were out there going crazy, man.
Right.
You know, the third question I have is like, how has welfare policies and reforms impacted Black families?
Hmm. Well, let's talk about when we get into the welfare policy. Now, you're talking about like the temporary assistant, like government assistant. That's what you're
All of
speaking of.
all of that, like, because I know where you're gonna take that. I read that too. That was
Yeah.
it,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, now back in 1996, Bill Clinton came out with a bill called Welfare to Work
Hmm.
Act. Okay, so in order for the mother to stay on welfare or to keep getting welfare assistance, she has to be looking for work.
Yeah.
And if she's not out trying to look for a job, then they can cut back on her benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the things: when people on welfare, they're not getting as much benefits as they used to at one point in time.
Of course.
You know, so and then it depends on the amount of children that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're qualified to get a certain amount of food stamps,
Yeah.
and then it goes back to income. Now, let's say you are a single person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know you're struggling, you're trying to get food stamps, but you make a little more, like you make $2 or $3 more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then what is expected as far as meeting the poverty line, right? You would not be qualified
Exactly.
because you only make $1 more. So now
Yeah.
that's a hindrance in itself. Again, we dealing with basic needs here,
Yeah.
right? And then now I have seen what I went grocery shopping the other day. And then I seen where they have a sign where like now if you know how people used to borrow other people's food stamp cards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they
I,
making it where now if you going to be doing that, you gotta show ID. So now
yeah.
that is challenging. You can't. It's gonna be hard to purchase food stamp from other people
Mm-hmm.
without showing proper identification. So
Exactly.
they cracking down on that too.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, necessities. People are doing what they have to do for necessities, and
Right.
it's really putting a clamp on things, locking things down.
Yeah.
But
So women are not getting as much money. And if you go back to listen to Fantasia's song called "Baby Mama," if you remember the song back in 2004, she did a song called "Baby Mama."
mm,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta,
yeah. That yes, yeah, that song was played on the airwaves. But she said a part. There was a part that she mentioned where she said you get a check in the mail and you looking at it and it's not enough money or something to that effect.
mm,
So yeah. So most women they're not getting enough money from welfare, because
mhm.
they're cutting back on a lot of it. And there's some women who pretty much put themselves in a position to where they not able to be qualified to get any because of the fact they misusing the money to do other
Yeah,
things instead of taking care of their priorities.
that's a fact. That's true indeed. Because I remember that reform in '96 through Bill Clinton,
Hmm.
where they wanted people to I seen it from both lenses. Because some
Right,
people were in the systems because they really needed it.
right,
They did need the assistance, but some were also abusing it.
exactly,
Like we know a group of people that's on a system that's not so called black, but they tend to they use the system to their advantage.
exactly.
You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
So
definitely.
they use it to their advantage, and I'd be like, you know what? You can't hate the player. You gotta hate the game because they figure it out. But some of our people, not saying all, used to abuse it and not
Hmm.
do nothing on it. Like you can't have like 4 generations down. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to do anything. Like you get that temporary assistance and you just build off of it. But to abuse it, I don't really support that. You get what I'm saying? But that also comes down to what we said in the beginning. It's access to quality education to further think because
Right.
many of our people are always stuck in survival mode. So it's
Yeah.
like there's no time to really grasp things to really think it out. So
Right.
these are things we got to look into, really, really examine. And I'm happy to have you on here to talk about that. So the next question I have for you, I mean, forgive me, I am drained, people. I am tired.
Oh, it's
um,
okay. It's okay.
um, what is the relationship between single parent households, right, and the economic challenges faced by Black families?
Hmm. Well, it involves the children. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the relationship is the children
that's a fact.
because it, like you mentioned, the survival mode.
Yeah,
It goes back to survival mode. How do you go about surviving? And how do you go about making sure that your children are cared for and they get the necessity they need? And they also have wants, but more so it's the necessity.
Mm,
So yeah, so the relationship between that is the children and survival mode.
definitely. It's always the children because, that's the future right there. And, it's very deep when it comes down. These are things um, people think that sex education is only speaks about just how men and women know. They have to get into like the nooks and crannies of it, of what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
You got to ask questions like, if I lay down with this person, we become pregnant, do we have the proper tools to build to support this child?
Right.
What can we really got to take heed to that, because you got adults out there that's struggling to take care of themselves. Now, to add a child to that equation, that is unfair. You understand? But
Right.
it's,
Well, my thing is, and it is unfair. I agree with you. My
yeah,
thing is, as humans, we're going to procreate.
of course, of
Not
course.
every last one of us, but there are those. Regardless of what your status may be,
Hmm.
humans are going to procreate. So it's more so about the economic system.
Yeah.
It's more so about the government that has to do better as far as making it fair. So when there is a procreation taking place, right,
Hmm.
and someone is conceiving a child, they'll be able to have the resources to take care of them, so they wouldn't have to make a decision whether they want to be able to have this child or not. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Or they won't have to be in a difficult situation. So it's more so the government, the society, the economic system that we are in.
Mm.
You
He said
know,
it go. So he's saying it's like the government somehow dictates it, or I would see it as capitalism that dictates.
it's the capitalism. Yes,
Yeah.
because capitalism brings that hindrance,
Yeah.
you know, because if you got a certain group of people over here that's benefiting, but everybody else over here got to struggle, and these people down here working for these people up here.
Mm.
You
See,
see?
I'll give you. Let me see. My sound effect's not that great, but I'm gonna give you a shot because that's respect right there. And don't laugh at my guns. What
Yes,
you said is so real, man. It's rigged. The game has been rigged.
yes,
So yeah, that's real right there. So
definitely.
so real. I have another question for you, Sister Tiff. How do health disparities and inadequate health services affect Black family dynamics?
Oh, now we get into the deep part of this. Well, inadequate health services.
Yeah,
Okay, so you have people who may not be able to afford insurance because they don't make enough money to be able to keep up with their insurance. So, like for example, with
yeah,
jobs offer insurance, right? But here's the thing: they'll take it out your paycheck every week or every 2 weeks.
exactly.
Okay, so now you're only left with so much money on your check. Now,
Hmm.
and here's the downside of having insurance, right?
Hmm.
Your insurance does not cover every single thing that's going on. So let's say you go to a doctor's appointment, you say you have a certain type of cancer, and it requires that you have to go through chemotherapy, go through radiation. Your insurance may not cover all of that. So now you gotta figure out where you're gonna get the rest of the money to cover up the cost. Or let's say if
Hmm.
you have to go through surgery, right?
Hmm.
To get like some type of tumor removed out your body, or you have like a replacement or whatever going on, your insurance may not cover it. So it's like you're stuck with how am I going to pay for this? Now you paying all this money to get insurance, but to only find out that your insurance gonna only cover so much of what is needed to be covered.
Definitely. Yeah, that copay will get you.
Yeah,
You're right.
it does. And then you got the out of pocket, you got the deductibles, all of that. Then now let's get into the health disparity. There's a lot going on with the health disparity that's really impacting the family.
Talk about it. Get into
Um,
that.
we can go into talk about diabetes, which is number one at the top of the list, right? You got
Yeah.
diabetes, high blood pressure. That's
Yeah.
very common in our community
Yes.
because of over the history, right? Over the years and going back to history of how our ancestors had their diets here in America. They didn't have proper diet. They were again going back onto survival mode, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they had to make use of what was available to them. They had to,
Scraps.
yeah, they had to make the scrap into a dish. But they didn't know that too much salt was not good for your body or too much sugar was not good for your body. All they know was we're trying to survive, we're trying to feed our family. And then
Exactly.
you look at our community, right? We don't have that many grocery stores nearby. You got gas station, you got corner stores. And when you go in there, they don't all it is a bunch of canned goods and the rest of it is sweets, right?
That's a
And then
fact.
you got some bread and cereal,
Mm-hmm.
and people survive off of eating spam, by eating sausage.
Yes.
um I forgot what that stuff called. It's like I don't know, it's some type of pork, it's grinded up, but it's in a can though.
Corned beef hash.
I think it's the corned beef hash. It
That makes
might
the
be.
that makes the best bullet rice. Shout out to all my Jamaicans with that white rice
Yeah,
and corned beef hash.
yeah, it
Oh
might be that. But see, that's all we pretty much know how to do. We don't have too many farmers market that's close by. If
yeah,
you want to go to a farmers market, you gotta go further out.
yeah,
If you want to
definitely.
go to a organic grocery store, right? Or
Hmm.
a gigantic grocery store, you got to go further out. But now
Definitely.
there are people who are trying to make it where people don't have to travel that far. Now you have places where I'm at in particular, you can go to farmer markets that's
Yeah,
close by, right? You can find some community gardens in the
mhm,
area.
yeah.
But normally speaking, in the black community, you don't have those assets, you don't have those resources, you know. And so,
What's so dope with how you say that it's about the farmers market? I have been to many, and not to veer off topic. When I went to the farmers market, when I go to the farmers market,
mhm.
you know, I see majority of the farmers that I do come there are European descent, right?
Or Mexican or
Or,
Hispanic.
or Mexican, right?
Mhm.
And I remember during the pandemic, I have said this before on the platform.
Mhm.
Ryan and I started the nonprofit Project Africa Restoration Par. I was studying on agriculture since, and I only see black people at the time. This is 2020. Only had 3% of farming resources,
Right.
which shows that okay, we talk about revolution, we talk about freedom, but yet we can't feed ourselves.
Correct.
How is that we only have 3% of farming? And I know what comes into play is economics and land and field, field, land, whatsoever.
Right.
But as you put it, it's so true because when in the inner cities, when you go to the so quote unquote urban areas, you see most fast food,
Correct.
a lot of liquor stores,
Correct.
a lot of smoke shops.
Correct.
But then you go supermarket, you see a lot of processed food mostly. I doubt the produce on the shelves are, you know, are the best. They probably at the bottom of the barrel, expired and such. And in order to eat healthy, you will have to go spend X amount of dollars, like Whole
Exactly.
Foods and stuff like that.
Or you have
That's
to order online,
yeah.
Amazon.
So I'm thinking like, how can we know that we could people say it's the systemically it's structured that way, but how can we maneuver around that?
Well, as I was speaking, for example, there's
Mm-hmm.
people who trying to make those changes, trying to be the example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they'll use their platform, right,
Yeah.
Instagram, for example, to promote their business, promote agriculture, promote
Mm-hmm.
the farmers market
Yeah.
in the community, or they have restaurants or eatery where
Mm-hmm.
people can buy wraps, get wraps, and get salads and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's people who's making those changes, but they're not getting the recognition. But the only way you'll find out if you on social media and you looking through Instagram, you're typing in black farmers or black supermarkets or a black healthy restaurants or something like that. Black owned healthy
Definitely.
restaurant. Yeah. And then let's go back into let's talk about HBCUs. Now,
Mm,
HBCUs, when they first came into existence, they either was school for people who wanted to go to seminary, that was into seminary or theology,
yes.
or those who wanted to do agriculture, right?
Yeah.
Like FAMU.
Yeah.
FAMU, right? When you look at the word A and M,
Yeah.
agriculture and mechanics, right?
Oh, okay.
Yes. And Booker T. Washington, when he started Tuskegee Institute, one of his main objectives was teaching agriculture.
Of course.
That was
That's
one of his
important.
main objectives. So
Hmm.
people don't know when the HBCUs first came into existence, right? Some of those HBCUs were teaching agriculture because they wanted to bring about the importance of farming, right?
Of course.
Right, and have more land and resources for the community.
I respect that. That's real.
Yes,
So, and I think some people may have a stigma against the whole farming concept. I don't find it. I always admire people that farm because I'm like, if when you can feed yourself,
right,
you're straight. Can nothing stop you.
right, and you can feed your family. And then sometimes you may have to go to the country, the rural
Mm.
town. Yeah,
Yeah,
we call it the country out here. So
yeah, yeah,
sometimes you may have to go to the country, the rural
yeah,
towns, to find some good quality food, like some actual organic food. You talking about meat, like chicken,
yeah.
lamb, or you may, find some watermelon,
Hmm.
some asparagus, whatever you're looking for, right? Sometimes you may have to go to a rural town.
Yeah, but that hasn't been genetically modified, which creates
Right.
all the health issues because it's happening. I see the childhood obesity
Oh yeah, it's very high.
plagues, especially it plagues American children, especially in our community. It plagues them a
Yeah.
lot, and that's when they have health complications and such. So I agree with that. What you said. Um, what impact does domestic violence have on Black families? This is a sensitive one.
Yeah, it's very sensitive. It has so much impact. So much impact. Um, that's where you can deal with post traumatic stress disorder.
Hmm.
Post traumatic stress disorder. And then you carry that trauma, which can be passed down from generation to generation, which is known as epigenetics. Okay.
Mm,
Because with epigenetics, that's basically me above genome. So where's carry or passed on your gene can be passed on down to, the child, especially when especially when the mother is pregnant, right?
yeah, yeah,
And she's carried on so much trauma, that stress that she has going on, it could be brought on to the child, and that child can carry that.
of
So,
course.
um, so yeah, you looking at generational trauma behind that,
Mm,
and you looking at destruction of families,
yeah,
and not only that, it can be stressful on, especially it's real stressful on women because it's very common when women deal with domestic violence, not to minimize that men don't go through it, because
especially.
men do, but
Yeah.
it's very common with women. It just brings about so much distress on women if women are not able to focus
Hmm.
on themselves or focus on being mothers at that. And
They
then
back. Hmm.
yeah, and then it'll cause them to turn violent themselves, right? And and they'll take it out on their children, or they'll turn to drugs because they're trying to get past
The
those
trauma. Yeah.
issues, yeah, the trauma they had to deal with.
Hmm.
So it brings about PTSD, but then there's also a positive effect, meaning that once you go through the process of healing, it's called PTG, which means post traumatic growth, because now you're able to grow from your traumatic situation. You're able to learn from it.
Yeah.
And there's people who are not able to heal from being traumatized, from being abused. So it sticks with them for the rest of their life. They don't know how to get past. They don't know how to get over it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, some people can't get past that. Some people, yeah, they stuck with that because it has so much impact on them. They don't know how to. It affects the one. It may affect the woman's ability to date somebody again. You know what I'm saying? Give a relationship a chance
Yeah.
because of what they experienced from the previous relationship.
Hmm. I'm listening. No, I'm listening because I'm like, I always wondered that. Like, do people actually, I know people do heal, but do people like say somebody can't heal? Are they just stuck in that phase by choice, or
Some people get stuck in that phase. I mean, and it can be by choice, because they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know what to do. They're too scared to let go or to heal from that because again, something could be so traumatic to the point that it can affect you psychologically. It can affect you for a long period of time. And people
mm,
don't understand how serious domestic violence is. You know what I'm
uh,
saying? Especially if you've been through multiple domestic violence. That's
mm,
not easy to recover from,
mm.
you know?
But that's why that right there with the whole epigenetics thing, we could say like the most obvious thing aspect of violence that it was passed down through slavery and generations, and then people grew up seeing their parents go through it, and the lack of
Racism.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah, that, and the lack of emotional intelligence within the household,
exactly.
where a couple will go through it and both reach their peak, and
Exactly.
within that point nobody wants to tone it down because they stuck in their ego, they stuck in their pride, they want to be right.
Exactly.
Instead of one just walking away, but let me walk away, other may not respect it, and boom, something chaotic break out. And yeah, a lot of that right there does lead to a lot of like trauma,
And
stig-
distrust.
yeah, distrust, stigmas, and the paranoia. But the thing is how to correct that, because I know people that have gone through that, and some recover, some didn't, and some I see
Exactly.
who hasn't recovered. I question it because I'm like, I think it's selective because they went back out there dating and such, right? Like they functional dating everybody else, they get into long term relationships. But as soon as like there's a disagreement, they run back to that previous situation. But I'm like, you can't paint each and every person with that one paintbrush and say you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. So that's why I say sometimes I'm like,
I
is it?
think I think it's neurological. I think it's neurological.
Yeah,
Um
trauma does alter some. Trauma can alter
right,
that, right?
because I think it really alters your brain activity. You know what I'm saying? How you I mean, especially if it revolves injury to the head,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Um, because you're not the same once you go through that. You're not the same.
really?
Either it's gonna either make you feel depressed or it's gonna make you feel more and make you more aggressive and angry.
So do you yeah, violence is violence. It does affect people. Some people react differently to it, and yeah.
Right, exactly.
All right. So I got one question. We got to come back to that because you got to come back on the show, man. I like where it's going.
Okay.
How do cultural representation in media and popular culture influence perceptions of Black family?
Well, there has been a lot of negative stereotype,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially the first thing when you see a black family together, it's almost surprising and shocking in a way
Yeah.
because it's not very common to see men and women in a household together like that, right?
Exactly.
Because one of the things is expected that the father should not be around, or people expect that the father be in prison or deceased, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the mother to be a single parent or a mother that's just rebellious, out of control, angry, a woman that's in the inner city,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? With just raising multiple kids by herself. That I mean, it creates those stereotypes. But
Yeah,
and people don't see the other side of, well, not everybody's like that. And if there are black families like that, they expect for those families to be somewhere in the middle class or upper class community, right?
yeah.
Somebody that's rich and famous. But
Hmm.
you have a two-parent household, and they live in poverty, they live in the hood together, but you don't see that as much.
Yeah, that's not depicted. Yeah.
It's not depicted the way,
Hmm.
if again, if they was to depict black families, they would depict them as the hustable,
Of course.
right? I mean, and the hustle. Don't get me wrong. I used to love the
Oh,
Cosby
me too.
Show back in the day. I used to love it, but not everybody is the hustable.
Nah,
Not everybody the French Prince of Bel Air.
nah. Yeah, you're right. It showed us in a different
So
light. Yeah, you're right. Because I feel that there is an attack on the nuclear family,
oh
and
yes,
you know,
definitely.
like um, as you mentioned, there are families that may not be rich in fiat cash and paper, monetary ways, but they are rich in principles and morals. Like you see a father with his family, for instance, they're off to going to church on a Sunday, or he's picking up his son or daughter from school. The wife is home, or they both go to work, and the children are home themselves, being responsible because they know these parents got to go out there and provide for their children. You know,
Hmm.
I wish they showed some more stuff like that. And because of PTSD and what we pick up from our families, because
Right.
not only the television depicts that, portrays that image, it's people around us too,
Exactly.
because it takes a village to raise a child. And
Yes.
a lot of families tend not to work together because to me, a family unit, man, woman come together, that's a unit right there, and your family
Yes.
backing should
Right.
be,
The extended family and the blended family. Yes.
yeah, should support that, because there's a lot of so-called broken homes out here, right?
Oh yes.
And many of them are broken. It could be for infidelity or the mother and father that don't agree. But the thing that I don't respect the most is that they could it's continued to be perpetuated. Like, I hear the terms single parent, single. No, you're a single male or female, but not a parent. If the mother or father involved in that child's life,
Right.
you're not a single parent.
Right. Exactly.
You're a single man or woman. That's I hate that term. That's co-parenting, because I don't believe in co-parenting. We're parents. We're raising
Yeah.
this child together. So
Right.
that
Exactly.
that that should be celebrated more. This is why I'm not crazy about, and this is not attacking Sexy Red, but when I heard a certain song say "F my baby daddy," any rapper, male or female, that says that, you're saying that, yes, you may have a disagreement with that person, but why you perpetuate? Why you got to say that out there? Because y'all both are consensual. When y'all was raising this child, when y'all was procreating this child, there was nothing that was being said at that moment.
Exactly.
It was a
Right.
whole lot of, you know what I'm saying, and it happened. So I think we need to fix that image of the family, because it has to change. It really does have to change. Um, I let me see. What do I have to ask you? Uh, what role do community organizations play in supporting Black families?
Well, community organization plays a vital role,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to social rights,
Hmm.
right? Human rights.
Yeah,
Okay. That's where community plays a vital role. The
definitely.
rights for um black children,
Hmm.
right? To keep the youth out the streets and get them involved in more community activities,
Yeah,
right? The resources for black women to be able to make sure they learn things that will help them get access to resources, and
yeah,
also be able to learn, for example, self defense.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
important.
Um, and then black men to help keep the brothers from getting involved in so much violence and being incarcerated at a higher number,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
and being able to bring about some form of mental health awareness.
Preach, sister. That's what's up.
Yeah, create a seminar where men and women and children can all be able to come together and talk out their issues. And there should be a separate thing for the men to have their seminars where they could talk amongst themselves and what they can do better as men, and a seminar for women where they can do better as women and what they can work on. And also, I brought this up in the past, and I always bring it up: rite of passage.
Mm.
Rite of passage is needed.
Go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
So when you have rite of passage, right, that's a journey into man and womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a opening, it's a welcoming.
Definitely break it down for us, sis. That's so dope what you're saying. I don't let's break it down for those that's watching that don't understand what a rite of passage is. Like as you mentioned, a walk through morning, man or womanhood.
Right. So if you so basically rite of passage is the open ceremony, if you want to call it that, to man
Mm-hmm.
and womanhood. And that's when you become a teenager or adolescent. You're going
Yeah,
through that process. And you're learning the basic things that you need to know as a man or as a woman. And normally you learn it from the same sex, meaning that you'll learn about womanhood from a woman and you learn about manhood from a man if you're a male. So once you go through the process of learning the importance of that and what your responsibility are, right? Then you go through that ceremony to pretty much welcome you into that level.
yeah,
You done went through that process. You done went through the learning. You done went through the schools. Right? You done
yeah.
had the guidance. You done had the eldership. So now
Definitely.
you take what you learn and you apply it to your life, and you pass it on to the next generation to come.
That's so real. I believe that is what we're missing in today's age. I feel like the elders are afraid to communicate and teach the youth. Some are, but many of them become
Yeah,
very afraid of them because they see it at like the complete age gap, generational gap that they have a problem with trying to without understanding. It's imperative that we have these dialogues like this platform, what you're doing, and I watch your platform at times and what you bring. Now, because trust me, you be servicing when they not making sense. To me, tell you, Tiffany will bite on them, yo. She will. But
mhm,
what she be saying is very true because I think the so-called black community needs to start taking accountability. But
definitely,
before we seek to be accepted by others, we must accept ourselves.
exactly, definitely.
And if we don't, we would not make any progress. So I appreciate that what you said, and we do need rite of passages. We do need mentorship programs.
Exactly.
Brothers need to hold brothers responsible. You know, guide them through, and sisters need to hold sisters responsible. And it's time to clean up our community. With all due respect, we got a lot of work to do, man. Kamal is
Yeah,
not going to save you, people. So for those out there thinking Kamal is not going to save you, Trump is not going to save you.
right,
You understand? You got to learn to look within yourself and gather up like-minded people.
right.
And start making the changes. And families need to heal. Fathers
And
need to
this
be fathers. Go ahead.
and this is one of the reasons why I support certain schools of thoughts
Yeah.
and certain spiritual system.
Yeah.
I'm like a big advocate for the ATR, the African traditional religion,
Yes.
because I see that is connecting back to um African lineage,
Mm,
African bloodline, and pretty much the ancestry. And
yeah.
also, it's teaching the values and important in principle. Now, you have to be mindful of certain individual because they know how to put on a facade very well.
Yeah.
Certain individual you have to be mindful of,
Yeah.
but